For years, David Mann played the loyal sidekick, the comic relief, the steady voice in the chaos, the man who stood by Tyler Perry through it all. But behind the laughter and stage lights, a storm was quietly brewing. And now, he's finally breaking his silence. What he reveals about Tyler Perry will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. This isn't just another Hollywood fallout, this is a tale of loyalty pushed to the brink, of manipulation masked as mentorship, and a friendship that may have been built on silence and control. Behind the Medea wig and gospel choirs, behind the family-friendly image, lies a story of betrayal that's been buried for years, until now. David Mann is done being quiet, and once you hear what he has to say, you'll never look at Tyler Perry the same way again. Yes, David Mann, the gospel voice and comedic heart of Tyler Perry's empire, is no longer staying silent. After more than 2 decades of loyalty, faith, and friendship, he's finally speaking out. And what he's revealing isn't just shocking, it's explosive. This isn't your typical Hollywood fallout. It's a deep, spiritual fracture, one that calls into question everything fans thought they knew about Tyler Perry's rise, his empire, and his intentions behind the camera. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on a truth that's been buried for years. What drove David Mann to keep quiet for so long? What was the breaking point that finally made him speak? And what exactly did Tyler Perry do that crossed a line that can't be uncrossed? From the sets of Meet the Browns to Medea's Big Happy Family, the signs were always there, hidden in plain sight. And now, the silence is broken, and the truth is louder than ever. You won't believe how deep this goes, or where it might be heading next. Because before the betrayal, before the silence, before the fallout that's now rocking gospel circles and Black Hollywood alike, there was trust. There was partnership. There was something that looked, to fans around the world, like unshakable brotherhood. David Mann and Tyler Perry weren't just colleagues, they were a cultural force. Together, they redefined what Black stage plays and family sitcoms could be. They brought laughter, healing, and faith into living rooms everywhere. It all started in the early 2000s, when Tyler Perry was clawing his way out of homelessness and building an empire with one character, Medea. His shows were raw, spiritual, and real. And at the center of it all stood David Mann, bringing life to the unforgettable Mr. Brown. Alongside his powerhouse wife, Tamela Mann, David became a pillar in the Tyler Perry universe. Their chemistry was electric, their loyalty absolute. Or so it seemed. Because somewhere along the way, that unbreakable bond began to crack. And now, David is finally ready to reveal what really went on behind the scenes. Fans got to know them as people, not just roles. Each play and show, from Meet the Browns to Medea Goes to Jail, turned into more than just a way to pass the time. It turned into service. It turned into hope. Most people don't know this, though. The way David and Tyler worked together creatively was off. As writer, director, producer, and actor, Perry had full control over the show. David, on and off screen, was left in a supporting part. People who were close to the shows said that David and others were stuck in old contracts from when they were in stage plays, while Perry was making millions. Supposedly limited their earnings and rights to have a say in future projects. David didn't say anything, though. He kept smiling. He did what he was told over and over. However, was it love or fear? That's not even the whole story. What happened to David Mann while he was making Meet the Browns changed everything. A very nervous moment that made him question everything. We'll get to that in the next part, since what happened on set wasn't in the plot. It was supposed to be the best work they had done together as artists. Meet the Browns, the hit TV show that brought Perry's stage characters into millions of homes, had great numbers. Fans loved Mr. Brown for his funny timing, loud clothes, and singing off-key. But David Mann wasn't laughing behind the scenes. In fact, he was in pain. Now, people who are close to the production say that something changed during shooting for the 3rd season. Tyler Perry, who is known for micromanaging everything on set, started concentrating on the creative ideas of David and other group members. Even though David has known Mr. Perry, who played Brown's character, allegedly turned down his ideas and even rewrote scenes without telling him. Scenes that David had practiced and felt strongly about. There was this episode that David was really excited about. It had a moment where Mr. Brown finally lets down his guard and shows a real emotional side, a source said. Tyler threw it out at the last minute because he thought it was too deep for the character. David was hurt. It wasn't just about building characters either. Several close friends and family say that Tyler started taking credit for ideas and events that David helped create. Together they came up with skits, jokes, and dramatic beats that Perry started to push through as his own vision. It felt like an eraser for David, like someone who had been there with him from the start. Then there was the fight. It's now official that David finally addressed Tyler on set during one tense day of filming, even though the subject is rarely brought up in public. "Man, this isn't the same energy we had before." He is said to have told him, "You say it's about God and the people, but now it's just about power. Where do I fit in now?" Witnesses say Tyler replied in a cold way, showing little empathy. Making it clear that he was in charge of everything creatively. "This is my vision," he reportedly said. "If you have a problem with that, there's the door." That's when David started to pull away. In public, the man stayed loyal, smiling for the camera and sharing videos of himself laughing behind the scenes. In secret, though, the damage was done. David played less of a part in Perry's younger projects. Offers slowed down, creative teamwork slowed down, and David's silence was deafening. But this is where it gets really interesting. Tyler is said to have ignored more than just David. David Mann's situation wasn't the only one that went wrong. It was part of a disturbing trend that many people in the entertainment business have talked about behind closed doors, but not many have been brave enough to face in public. If you look more closely, you'll notice that a lot of known faces disappear from Tyler Perry's projects. These people all have similar stories. To begin, let us talk about Cassie Davis, who is famous for her role as the tough and funny Aunt Bam. For many years, she was a mainstay in all of Perry's projects, from plays on stage to TV shows to movies. But all of a sudden, she stopped working on projects for a long time. It was said that artistic differences behind the scenes, especially since Perry had a tighter grip on scripts and production, were a big part of it. Some people close to the show say that Cassie pushed back against some less godly directions it was going. Sense a pattern? Next, there's Patrice Lovely, the actor who played the crazy Hattie Mae Love. She was loved by her fans for her goofy comedy and high-energy performance. But a lot of people don't know that she also privately complained about how Perry often ignored character arcs and her ideas in favor of pursuing his own artistic goals. Several sources say that Patrice felt like she was used and never really appreciated. Tasha Smith, who is known for her tough roles as Angela and Why Did I Get Married? She is a fan favorite. And Tasha's fight with Perry was more public, for better or worse. Later, she talked about how hard it was to get her voice heard on set and how she had to fight for fair treatment. At one point, she said that Perry's tight control over his actors' careers, especially those he found, made her feel trapped. What does this have to do with David Mann? Easy. The fact that David Mann kept quiet for so long gave Perry's company legitimacy. People saw David as their loyal friend because he never questioned Perry's authority. But now that David has backed off and spoken out, even if it was in a roundabout way, the dam is starting to break. David just recently did a radio interview. He didn't say any names, but it was clear what he was saying. David said, "Loyalty without respect turns into servitude," when asked about loyalty in Hollywood. "People were loyal to me, but they didn't always respect me. Even the most devoted must draw a line at some point." Fans knew right away who he was talking about. People on social media were full of guesses. What does he mean by Tyler Perry? Have people always laughed at Mr. Brown and never taken him seriously? As if that wasn't scary enough, some people say this fallout may have spiritual effects. David and Tamerlan have always had a strong faith in the gospel and in service. Some people think that David struggled on the inside as Perry's productions became less religious and more edgy. He felt stuck between faith and friendship, loyalty and spiritual belief. Tamela Mann is one of the most powerful names that come to mind when you think of great gospel artists. Millions of people have been moved by her speech, her faith, and how real she is. But besides the silver records and standing ovations, Tamela had to deal with the same problems in Hollywood as her husband David, especially when it came to Tyler Perry. Another thing that many people don't know is how important Tamela was to both Perry's rise and David's ability to keep his cool. David played Mr. Brown, who was silly and loud. Tamela was cool and strong both on and off screen. She played Mr. Brown's daughter Cora in almost all of the Perry productions they were in together. Realistically, though, she was the rock that helped David deal with how he felt about being left out. Close friends of the man say that Tamela knew about the tension going on behind the scenes. She was worried about Perry's direction, especially the moral cuts that were being made. Tamela is said to have become more uncomfortable as Perry's shows got worse, featuring more swearing and sexually suggestive material and less focus on gospel values. But she didn't say anything in public out of respect for David's friendship with Perry and their long-standing promise to the audience. But behind David's back, Tama told him to pick peace over fame. The couple worked with this person during a gospel tour. That person said Tamela never wanted to burn bridges, but she also didn't want to keep going on one that was on fire. She told David, "You don't have to say it out loud, but you have to be honest with yourself." And what she did worked. David didn't go after Perry in the press, but instead decided to keep a quiet distance. It was more important to him to build the Mann family brand, which included music, tearing, and even family-based reality shows about faith, fun, and love. They didn't just change their minds about making the Mann's reality show, their gospel albums, and Tamela's multiple award-winning songs. They did these things on purpose to get their voice back from Perry and plots they couldn't change. They wanted to be in a place where their message wasn't censored or changed. But here's the sad part. Even with everything, Tama and David have never named Perry until now. Because Tamela was asked directly, "Why don't you work with Tyler Perry anymore?" during a live Q&A with fans not long ago. "Sometimes when your spirit no longer aligns with the project, it's time to gracefully step away," was her answer. Not that there's hate, just that we grow. Fans thought that meant it was true. Perry's kingdom was too big for the Manns on a spiritual, emotional, and professional level. It wasn't just a job move that made them leave. It was a stand for being real. David Mann kept it all inside for years. Even though there were contract limits, quiet tensions on set, disrespect for the artists, and a quiet departure from Perry's productions, he didn't say a word. But David finally let down his guard in a recent in-depth talk on the gospel podcast Truth Behind the Praise. Just so we're clear, David didn't call anyone names. When the host asked, "Have you ever trusted someone in this industry so much?" he didn't point the finger, but his words were heavy, and the message was clear. To feel like they kept you close by using your faith. David stopped moving. He finally spoke after a long pause. "You know what hurts the most? It's not when people you don't know take advantage of you. They look you in the eye and tell you it's ministry. They teach God's name and build their reputation on being moral. When it's really just to trick them." The studio went dead quiet. The host looked shocked and asked, "Was this someone close to you?" David agreed and said, "This was family. I thought it was work for the kingdom, but then I realized I was just game peace." Within minutes, social media went crazy. His fans knew just who he was talking about. Tyler Perry was now being seen in a new light. He was known for building a billion-dollar media empire around faith and black empowerment. And not just as a prophet, as someone who might have used religion to keep people in line. But what did David finally give up on? People who knew the Mann's family say it wasn't money. It wasn't even the rudeness. Perry is said to have made the promise. And then broken away, which David thought was very cruel and personal. This is the story. In 2017, Perry talked about the idea of making a spin-off show that would only be about Mr. Brown. It was a full-circle moment for David, who had been the main figure for more than 20 years. David had a lot at stake. He put forward ideas. He started to write down things. Even making time in his plan for it, he was looking forward to the start of production. The project never took place, though. Worse, Perry started a completely different comedic show a few months later that had the same family problems and humor but a whole new company. David was not called. Nobody ever thanked him for what he did. People who worked there say Perry used a lot of the creative ideas David had brought up in private talks. That's what was wrong. That's when David turned away. And in a recent interview, he talked about the moment he understood this wasn't brotherhood. There was no service here. It was business. And I was just another thing they made. This is even stronger because of this. David wasn't mad when he said those things. He wasn't angry. He spoke calmly, almost unluckily, like a person who had mourned a friendship. That adulthood, that restraint is what genuinely resonated with fanatics. He wasn't looking to cancel all people. He wasn't chasing headlines. He became just telling the fact. On account that podcast, gospel and leisure circles had been a buzz. A few celebrities have quietly supported David's courage. Others have remained silent, likely terrified of burning bridges with Perry's big empire. But lovers are talking up loud and clear, praising David for sooner or later displaying what such a lot of have felt, that loyalty must by no means fee you your voice. Now that David Guy has subsequently broken his silence, fanatics are left thinking what occurs subsequent. To date, Tyler Perry has remained publicly silent approximately the indirect allegations. No interviews, no statements, and no social media responses. But the silence is loud. And within the courtroom of public opinion, now not announcing something can every so often say the whole thing. Many accept as true with that Tyler is banking on his lengthy status goodwill, his popularity as a visionary, a philanthropist, and a frontrunner in black media to carry him via this wave of scrutiny. But the fact is the cracks are beginning to show. Different former collaborators have slowly began sharing their personal memories. A few actors and group individuals have published vague however telling messages on their social media. Such things as, ultimately, someone said it or it is about time parents begin talking reality. Though they don't call names, the implication is obvious. David's testimony has opened the floodgates. Fans who grew up looking Meet the Browns, Residents of Pain, and the Ma films are now looking at those shows in a different way with questions, with skepticism, and in a few cases with disappointment. But what about David Mann? Nicely, here's the splendor in all this. David isn't looking to tear down all people. He is now not bitter. He is now not on a smear campaign. What he's doing is something a great deal deeper, something we not often see in Hollywood. Deciding on recovery over headlines. Seeing that stepping far away from Perry's shadow, David and Tamela Mann have flourished. Their tune careers maintain to thrive, mainly in the gospel world. Tamela's albums crown the Billboard charts. Their Circle of Relatives logo is more potent than ever with a fan base that appreciates their authenticity. They have released their very own tasks rooted in religion, joy, and integrity, all on their very own terms. In a recent concert, Tamela finished her effective music, Take Me to the King, and David stood beside her on level. However, this time it wasn't as Mr. Brown. It became as David, the man, the husband, the father, and the voice eventually reclaiming his identification. As the music ended, he advised the group. Every now and then God has to take away you from the spotlight of a person else so he can shine one in your reality. And much like that, the audience erupted because it wasn't just amusement anymore. It was testimony. So what can we get rid of from this? David Mann's quiet, devoted career behind the curtain of Tyler Perry's empire helped build an amusement dynasty. But behind the laughter and loyalty turned into a person struggling to be heard. And whilst the honor dwindled, David did some things so many others in the enterprise are afraid to do. He walked away with grace. He failed to scream. He didn't slander. He spoke reality gently however firmly and allowed the sector to look the man at the back of Mr. Brown. And now enthusiasts everywhere are listening. Do you consider David's silence blanketed Perry for too lengthy? Have to Tyler ultimately reply to those claims? Or is this just the beginning of extra voices stepping forward? Allow us to recognize in the remarks beneath. Recall to like, subscribe, and switch on the notification bell so that you don't miss the subsequent divulge or celeb breakdown. We've got extra truth, extra receipts, and more eye-establishing stories coming your manner. This has been a deep one. And whether you are Crew Perry, Team Guy, or just searching for the reality, thank you for watching until the end.